Debt, fear, relationships, the children, your health, work. When you want to give up and you need courage to continue, take heart and stay tuned as RJ Jackson writes her signature message of hope on your heart. You don't have to live where you're dying, and you don't have to die where you're living. Like every show of Conversations on Courage, you'll be informed, inspired, and encouraged to find the courage you need to succeed at home, work, and in your business. Get your pen and paper. You'll want to take notes. And now, your host, RJ Jackson, the Courage Giver.
RJ Jackson, yes, that's me, your host. Glad to be here, and welcome to the Conversation on Courage podcast. Welcome to the table. Oh, we have for you today another amazing fat-free meal to help you live your life healthy and whole. We want to say welcome. Glad that you're here. This is episode 1. Well, it's not really our first one, but it is the one you are going to want to listen to over and over again. It's the one you're going to want to share with your friends. So, matter of fact, why don't you go ahead and do that right now? Call your friends, text them, email them. Let them know that we are here on Conversations on Courage, waiting to inspire their life. We have lots in store for you today. We're going to give you inspiration that causes transformation. We are going to answer some of the questions that you have had the courage to ask us in our Facebook group, Girl, I'm Working on It Too. And if you're not a part of our group, we invite you to join us today at Girl, I'm Working on It Too on Facebook. We're also going to bring a special guest to the table that will encourage our heart.
Stay tuned. Coming up next, RJ brings her special guest to the table for more authentic and down-to-earth Conversations on Courage.
Our guest for today is Cheryl Y. Howard. Cheryl is an inspirational and empowerment specialist, motivating others to break through barriers and propel into their purpose. Let's welcome Cheryl to the table. Cheryl, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the table. We are looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Hi. So glad to be here, RJ.
We are equally excited, Cheryl. Thank you for being willing to be transparent and authentic to share your truth here at the table on Conversations on Courage. How about we just go right ahead and jump into the conversation? As I always ask, what's going on in your world? How did you get to where you are? Where are you? What are you doing? Yeah, what's your story, Cheryl?
Well, RJ, just to make it brief, because there's a lot of things that I've overcome, and I'm so thankful for. But how I get to where I am today is that as a child and adolescent, I experienced a lot of different traumas in my life that I've overcome and fought through, the barriers that I battled with in my adulthood. And some of those traumas led me to where I am today. But before I get to that part, just to briefly describe some things that I just really battled with was dealing with self-esteem issues that a lot of us deal with. And it wasn't that I didn't love myself or like myself, but it's almost like having a misfit syndrome where I just didn't feel like I fit in with my environment. My environment, I saw abuse. I've seen abuse in my home. I've seen abuse outside, growing up in the projects in Brooklyn, New York. I saw a lot of stuff in that type of environment, which they call the hood. And so not only my own trauma, but even experience other people's trauma. And then in my own personal life, as a child, I dealt with being molested. I had babysitters. My mother would have, how sometimes you hire like a young girl or somebody who lives in the neighborhood next door to you, and it's like, to give them extra money. Because my mom was basically a single mom for a while before she remarried my stepfather. And so during that time when she would hire certain people to babysit me, there was one in particular who used to really molest with me. And I spoke to my mom about that, and, she dealt with that in her own way. But not even only the molestation, I also dealt with a lot of bullying in elementary school. Like I said, not fitting in and being different from everybody around, most of the people around me. I dealt with girls who didn't like me just because I was, or maybe I wore something nice during the day. I'm coming home from church, and I remember one incident where one girl looked at me and said, "Oh, you think you're cute," stuff like that, and just wanted to really start fights with me. And I wasn't that type of child, RJ, that fought. I didn't know how to fight like guys. The girls that I grew up with, they knew how to get down with the fist fighting like the guys outside. I didn't learn that, and that wasn't my temperament. So I was more of the peacemaker. So can you imagine me growing up in a community where a lot of people are aggressive, they want to fight, going through the molestation and the bullying? No wonder I had certain traumas that I had to deal with, so I can understand and identify other people who have gone through the same thing. And so how I got to where I am today, experiencing that, got older, and then, eventually I moved out of the projects, I got married, got divorced. And so now, because of all of those things I experienced, I didn't finish high school. I dropped out at 10th grade. I'll never forget it again. And because I didn't really feel comfortable, I wasn't confident, and so I got lost. I got lost in high school. Imagine being in high school and everybody's just, it appeared that everybody was confident, but I understand that a lot of other kids had their own, insecurities. But because of what I was battling with, I didn't have enough to stay and cope. And so I dropped out. I met one good friend who I knew from the past, and that was it. That was all she wrote. We started cutting class. We're not going to school anymore. We just hanging out in the streets. We hanging out at each other's houses, which is something that should not have been allowed. And so I dropped out of school, and then, like I said, I got married. I moved from Brooklyn, New York to Queens, New York. About 20-something years I lived there, but in the midst of all of that, I know after the divorce, that was another trauma. I needed to have something else because I don't have a diploma. So you can imagine it was hard for me to find jobs, like really good paying jobs. And I started working at the age of 19, like on Wall Street, having these temp jobs, but I could never, be promoted. Or even feel motivated to take on higher positions because I didn't have a high school diploma. So now I'm like, I'm feeling stuck. I need to do something. And so having one thing I can say that was positive in my life, I started seeking, God. I started going to church. And for me, church was an intervention for my life. It really helped me. It affirmed me. I had more a sense of who I was and that there was something here for me to do. Like I'm not just existing. And so that was a big help, just having that foundation. And so that really pushed me along with, having that faith. And so I decided to go back to school. I had to go back to school now. Now I'm a single mom, divorced single mom, raising my daughter. But one thing I promised to myself that I was not going to raise my child, and this was not against anybody living in the hood, but because of what I went through, I did not want to subject my daughter to growing up in a neighborhood where you had to always come outside and worried about who doesn't like you today, who wants to say something negative, somebody want to do something bad to you, like the way I grew up. So I've made it my business to say, no, we're going to stay in suburbs and you're going to live in a decent neighborhood. And I kept speaking that. And I surrounded myself by positive people. So I had a strong support system, which was a lot of people from the church. And so because of that, I went back to school and I said, okay, I needed to get my GED, before I can even think about getting an associate's degree. And I did that. I finished that. It's like God blessed me with people who gave me favor. One of my battles was like, oh, my God, I got to get through the math. That was the really thing that scared me. It was like, if I can get math done, I'm good. I never had a problem with, reading. And so I managed to make it through. I was blessed with having good teachers. I got that. I went on and got bold and determined and said, okay, well, now I got my GED. How about going on to get my associates? And times were changing where you need to have either college credits or something. And I picked the field of counseling when it came to picking my undergraduate degree because people always came to me for advice or they wanted to know what my opinion was about things. And I realized that I had a certain influence with people, that people were drawn towards me. They felt, unjudged, but at the same time knew that I would give them the truth, but give it to them in love. And so I had a way of encouraging people, and I realized that was the strength that I had. And that's so important, to just see the strengths that you do have and not focus on what's your weaknesses or your failures or mistakes and things that happen to you. So I held on to those strengths and those things I started to identify in my own life. And so that caused me to go ahead and seek a degree in counseling. So I went on to get my associates in human services and social work, and then finally went on to get my master's in, I went on to pursue social work and then in human services counseling with children and family and marriage counseling. And that's pretty much how I got here where I am today. That just gave me a path. But I feel like I can resonate with my clients because I've been through those traumas. I know what it feels like, to try to break through these barriers in your mind and in your emotions.
Being different isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know it's looked at that way, but being different isn't a bad thing. It's really a courageous thing. It's an opportunity for us to show how courageous we really are. And that's what you had to do. And often in life, those opportunities are presented for us, and we don't take advantage of them. We allow fear to paralyze us and keep us from learning a lesson and living our best life ever. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Let's talk about a part of your story. What one lesson did you learn from your story that we can learn as we journey as well?
One of the things I learned was about being violent towards my purpose. And like I said, that's just with that one lady saying that maybe you should stop doing what you're doing. And I realized, no, I got to be violent. And the reason why I say violent, a lot of times we have a negative connotation with violence. Violence not only aggressive, and that's not always bad, but it was to be intense, like intentional about what I needed to do. I have overcome so much in my childhood, not mentioning a lot of other stuff that I experienced. I decided I needed to be intense, unstoppable, and uncompromising. I just wasn't going to compromise, and I think that's very important when you have a goal that you set out to do.
You talked about growing up in New York. I am an upstate New Yorker, and just growing up in New York alone makes you tough.
Yes,
it makes you
does.
Resilient for the most part because the environment positions you for that. It's just a matter of what side of the fence are we going to decide to live on? Are we going to say, oh, no, it was too tough, it kind of killed me, or, man, it was tough, so it made me be the tougher and get going. So, yeah, we kind of have that New York thing going on here, girl.
Yeah.
You talked about growing up feeling like a misfit. And people feel that way. They feel like they don't fit in. But I like the way Dr. Seuss says it. Why fit in when you were born to stand out? So what, in your experience, and what words of hope do you have for women today who feel stuck and feel like a misfit?
To understand that, first of all, we all have a uniqueness. Nobody is the same. Everybody has something special about them. And I've learned to turn that into positive, that a misfit is not bad. You don't fit in with every crowd. It's not meant for you to fit in with everybody because there's something unique that you have. There's a purpose that you have in this world that you have to achieve and that you have to manifest. And so I saw that how being a misfit as I got older, because, of course, when you're young, you don't feel this way, I realized it was meant to be a misfit. Because if I wasn't a misfit, RJ, I probably would have did a lot of the things that people around me did. And some of them didn't make it, whether it was a spiritual death or a physical death, and I'm still here. And so I want to encourage any woman listening that you're still here. It wasn't meant for you to fit in. I mean, if you have something that's unique and different from everybody else, it can't fit with everybody else's, what everybody else is doing.
So, again, your misfit It's fitting right in to what God has in store for you. I know you have a book out, and it's called Let Me Out. Let's talk quickly about your book.
Okay, so Let Me Out really comes from, talked about the divorce and everything. There was a time that I became unemployed, and it was like really difficult for me and my daughter now, just taking care of on my own. And I remember sitting at my desktop, really, applying for jobs, looking for jobs online. And I stopped myself and said, God, there's something you've given me in my hands. I want to use what's in my hands. So what happened was, during that prayer, he reminded me of, the book that I always wanted to write, all those things that I started out to do when I was a child, because a lot of times we forget those visions and dreams when we're going through so many things in life. And I said, there's something inside of me that I want to release, and I wanted to encourage other people to, be able to manifest those things that are hidden dormant inside of them. And so when he reminded me of all that, I just started writing, and I knew the book was going to take years, because I believe I started writing that book in 2000 when I got my first computer. And God was like, this is going to be a journal book. I'm going to take people through the past. When I first started writing the book, I didn't have the GED at all, but I knew that was something I was going to accomplish. And I actually prophesied and said, by the time I finish this book, I would have my degrees and my diploma. And so the book focused on letting those things that's been lying dormant, those things you forgot about, those visions, those dreams, those passions. A lot of those things get killed when you go through a lot of traumatic experience in your life. It's like they get buried. And so he reminded me of all of that, and I just went with that. So that was like a strategy from God, really. Get Your Life Back is not actually a book. It's actually the name of my inspirational speaking to people and coaching. That's what Get Your Life Back is. But I talk about Get Your Life Back in the book, because literally what I did, I had to start from scratch. I had to go and get my life back. And so there's a part of the book where I do talk about that, whether you got to, this is like going down, starting from scratch, doing everything over again, and knowing that is okay, as long as you surround yourself by the right people. I had literally had a dream of an ugly enemy taking stuff from me, and then trying to take stuff from my daughter. And in the dream, I stopped him and said, oh, no, you're not. I said, give me back my stuff, and give me that back too. And you're not getting this from my daughter neither, because I saw what that enemy was trying to affect my seed, my daughter. And I was like, oh, no, you're not. She is not going to complete the same cycle. She's not going to go through the same things. And so I saw myself in the vision and the dream just grabbing everything back. So I talk about that as well in the book. I literally had to get my life back, but also protect, my next generation.
That's right. Sometimes we don't want to fall down, but a person who falls and gets back up is much stronger than a person who never fails. And every experience that we experience in falling allows us to help someone else get back up. So it's really good to know that people like yourself have the courage to share their story and to help people who have fallen get back up. Because at some point or another, life for all of us has not turned out the exact way that we wanted it to. But we just simply keep on going. It takes courage to do that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about courage. Give us a word of encouragement that will help us flex our courage muscle and get back up.
One of the things is really having that, first of all, developing that mindset. When you find out about whose you are, and I say God, whose you are, and receive those affirmations, whether it's from a word or an inspirational book, because you have to deal with the mindset first. And then you come to the point, like I said, when you become violent and decide that no is not an option. We have to remember actually that everybody failed at something. Everybody make mistakes. There's nobody in this planet that is perfect. Some of our stuff is hidden and some of our stuff is out where people can see. And when I started telling my own self that, I started feeling special, like I'm just as special as anybody else. And so we have to do that sometime, RJ. We have to encourage ourselves like I said, I've learned to affirm myself, encourage myself, speak those things, surround myself by the right people, and just said no is not an option. I have to see these visions, purpose, live intentional, whatever you want to call it, to the end. And what I did was picture this ugly thing, like I call the enemy, sitting back laughing. And we have to say, you're not going to have the last say over my life. That's what you have to confess. So I believe confession is very powerful in, being positive and staying focused toward whatever goal and just living, not even going after any particular thing, just staying in the fight and being able to live and knowing that you're a survivor. So one thing I would say is no is definitely not an option. And changing that mindset, learning to see things differently. I always say I always see the glass half full, or I have a lemonade mentality. And that's how I've always been. And I know that's what kept me. That's what kept my mind and kept me from giving up. Just staying positive and saying, but what about if this happened? Because a lot of times we tend to, a lot of people that I talk to that, deal with depression and sadness and giving up hope, they always see things negative. They always see the bottom, the empty part of the glass. And I'm like, well, what if it does work out? Well, what if you are able to accomplish that? What about that? Like learning to think opposite of those core negative thoughts and feelings that some of us battle with.
And it is a battle. And the reason why it's a battle, because the truth is we're all broken at some point, in some way. But what really matters most is that we get up and we put the pieces back together. And my friend, that takes courage. So as Cheryl has said to us today, stay in the fight. And as we talk about staying in the fight, I want to make sure you understand that we're not talking about staying in the fight of domestic violence. And with this being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we want to affirm and confirm your greatness and remind you, sister, that you are worth love and being loved. And love shouldn't hurt. If you're being hurt, if you're involved in a fight for your life, there is safety and there is hope. I know it's not easy to get out. And listen, let me tell you, I'm not judging you. I am only loving on you and reminding you there is hope and there is safety waiting for you. You no longer have to fight. God wants to fight the battle for you, and he has people to fight the battle with you. If you need help at the end of this broadcast, we have resources for you to use wisely. Always keep your safety in mind first. And yes, girl, you are loved, and love doesn't hurt. Love heals. Cheryl, thank you so much for reminding us that we can get back up. We can try again, that our life counts, and there's greatness inside of us. Thank you for sharing your story and your words of encouragement with us. How can we connect with you for more information on transformation and getting back up?
Thank you so much, and I was so glad to be just to be an instrumental too to help somebody feel encouraged. I can be followed actually on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, it's Cheryl Howard, Get Your Life Back, and my website is CherylYHoward.com.
That's CherylYHoward.com. If you missed any of the information to connect with Cheryl, you can always get it on our website, conversationsoncourage.com. Thank you, Cheryl, once again for being our guest and inspiring our heart today, reminding us that we can get our life back. Most of all, we want to say thank you. Thank you for being the most valuable part of Conversations on Courage. If you enjoyed the broadcast, be sure to like, share, comment, and review. You can review our broadcast on Yelp at Motivated by RJ and Associates. That's Motivated by RJ and Associates. You can also view us on iTunes and iHeart. Conversations on Courage. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And if you and or your children need someone to talk to, a safe place, or a confidential service, you can call the Domestic Violence Hotline 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. The number once again is 1-800-799-7233. Always keep your family's safety first. Never use your own personal cell phone. Ask a friend if you can use their phone or their email to call for help. I'm R.J. Jackson, the Courage Giver, and I would be honored to inspire you and your audience to live your best life with confidence, courage, and vision. Contact me today, and let's have a conversation on courage.
Thank you for joining us for Conversations on Courage. Now that you've been inspired, informed, and encouraged, it's time for you to take action. So head on over to thecouragegiver.com. That's thecouragegiver.com and connect with RJ for a personal conversation on courage. She's waiting to help you take the risk you need to succeed.